Mabuhay! We are the group 2 and today we're going to dissect the pig's heart. This will help us to know the anatomy of pig's heart, which is responsible for pumping blood throughout the body. So why is the pig's heart used to study the anatomy of human heart? Because they are very similar in size, structure, and function. So the heart is a fist-sized organ that pumps blood throughout the body. Our objective is to explore and understand the anatomy of the pig's heart, including its chambers, valves, and major blood vessels. The materials needed are the pig's hearts, lab gown and gloves, blade and scalpel, scissors and tray. The posterior, the anterior, the superior, and the inferior. This is the apex. The heart wall or the epicardium, the outer side layer. The myocardium, it is the middle thick layer. And the endocardium. And the endocardium, the inner smooth layer. Coronary arteries. The pulmonary artery. The aorta. The pulmonary veins. And the superior vena cava. Step 1. Preparation. Wear gloves, safety goggles, and lab gown.
So here I have started the dissection and I apologize in advance because I made the cut differently and it's not the correct way to cut. I would like to redo it but it's difficult to find another pig's heart, so I just continued. Despite the incorrect cut, I was still able to see the different structures of the heart like the chambers, valves, aorta, and pulmonary veins and arteries and others. Upon opening the heart, we can see now the 4 chambers. So that's the left ventricle, right ventricle, right atrium, there that is the right atrium, and the left atrium. So left ventricle has a thicker myocardium compared to the right ventricle. Left ventricle pumps blood into the body and requires more muscle mass for greater force, while the right ventricle pumps blood to the lungs, which requires less force. So it means its muscle mass is smaller. And this is the right atrium. It is located above the right ventricle, and right atrium receives the oxygenated blood from the body, and this blood is then pumped into the right ventricle, which sends it to the lungs for oxygenation. And this is left atrium. So left atrium is located above the left ventricle, and it receives oxygenated blood from the lungs. This oxygen-rich blood is pumped into the left ventricle, which distributes it throughout the body. So, the leaflets that you can see there is the bicuspid valve or the mitral valve. And the string-like structures that is attached to the valve leaflets or in the bicuspid valve is called chordae tendonae. So that's all for the 4 chambers, and the valves will be discussed with the next presenter. Thank you.
So in this dissection of a pig's heart, I examined the valves on both the left and right sides. But disclaimer, it looks like this since it was cut from a frontal section, not a transverse one. Starting with the left side, the left atrium houses the bicuspid or what we call mitral valve, which has 2 flaps and is located between the left atrium and left ventricle. The chordae tendonae, which you see, connect to this valve. Next, we have the aortic semilunar valve, situated at the exit of the left ventricle, ensuring blood flows into the aorta and ultimately to our body. On the right side, we find the tricuspid valve, located between the right atrium and right ventricle. Finally, the pulmonary valve, with its 3 flaps, is also located at the exit of the right ventricle, going to the pulmonary artery. So that concludes the overview of the heart valves. Next is the septum, to be presented by the next student.
Now let's move on to the right and left atrium and ventricles of the heart. As you can see, there is a blood vessel running down the heart. That is the vesicular septum that separate the right and left ventricle of the heart. And on the top of that, we have the atria. This is the left atrium and the other side is the right atria.
This is the septum. The interventricular septum separates the two ventricles, and the enteroatrial septum separates the two atria.